One must approach the Kremlin's military stratagems with a healthy dose of skepticism and well, particularly when its chief architect, when its supreme architect may well be languishing in the refrigeration compartment of his Valda residence, and the whispers that Vladimir Putin has shuffled off this mortal coil, leaving a body double or multiple body doubles and Dmitry Peskov to theatrically deny his death, have only intensified as Russia's behaviour on the battlefield becomes as disjointed as an amateur orchestra playing Tchaikovsky. Rumours of Putin's death, though possibly exaggerated and certainly enjoyed by me, are symptomatic of a regime grappling with a void left by an increasingly absent leader. Whether he is dead or hiding in a cellar doesn't really make too much difference. The smeggy Putin the fingers of the smeggy Putin reach long, even post-mortem, but they are nevertheless inadequate. A leader is forced to delegate. So his generals seem to draw battle plans not from any form of intelligence, but from a roulette wheel, the wheel of fate. And the late 2023 viral claims about his cardiac arrest and subsequent cryogenic repose may seem unsubstantiated, but the chaos they've sparked offers variable insight and is of value. It is of value because it tells you, that what you see is not necessarily what you get, WYSIWYG, or the opposite of WYSIWYG. Ukrainian intelligence suggested that the Kremlin itself fuels the speculation to gauge domestic and elite reactions, a dystopian focus group exercise. Ooh, what if they think I'm dead? Well, the only person in history who's really had an obsession about that was Cleopatra, and that didn't end up well. Nowhere in this dysfunction is there more evidence than in the Kursk region, where Ukraine's audacious counteroffensive has exposed the Kremlin's fissures. That's something, no doubt, which Mr. Putin, sitting for so long in the fridge, may have to deal with. General Yunus Bek Yevkurov, a last-minute appointment to manage the Kursk defence, exemplifies this ad hoc delegation at play, and Putin, or his spectral proxy, seems to be frantically shifting pieces on a chessboard, an icy chessboard that Ukraine upends with calculated gambles. And Yevkurov's hasty deployment suggests a Kremlin rattled not just by Ukrainian advances, but by the spectre of walking into peace negotiations with territorial losses on Russian soil. While Putin's enemy sort of gathers success, his economy teeters. Interest rates are a staggering 21%, labour shortages, inflation rampant, butter scarce. His military doctrine remains brutally simplistic, overwhelmed with swarm tactics regardless of the human cost. The meat grinder. But time is not on his side. Each day brings closer the inauguration of Donald Trump, whose expected peace deal could leave Russia negotiating from a position of weakness, in the fridge or out of the fridge, should Ukraine retain even a sliver of Kursk. For President Zelensky, the Kursk offensive, therefore, is both a savvy manoeuvre and at the same time a desperate gamble. With Ukrainian forces losing ground along the primary front line, holding Kursk could boost his leverage in anticipated peace talks, yet the costs are immense. Ukraine's war effort strains an exhausted population, increasingly favouring negotiations. Moreover, Ukraine has lost 40% of the land reclaimed in earlier offensives, and Western support teeters on the edge of fatigue. Putin's erratic delegation, whether to generals, body doubles, or beleaguered oligarchs, reflects a regime overstretched by internal dissent, over-focused on his own personal charisma, which, of course, on ice, the constrained by international sanctions and a war economy overheated like a Soviet-era central heating radiator. You know, in Russia even today, in Moscow even today, the heating in people's flats is centrally controlled. So you have these giant pipes going over the roads, carrying the central heating, and the only way to regulate your central heating is to open the window, even as the snow is falling. The recent involvement of North Korean troops in Kursk as cannon fodder in battles Zelensky gleefully tallies only adds to the absurdity of this situation, directed from the Smeg fridge. And meanwhile, sanctions fail to stymie Russia's relentless procurement of foreign-made drone components which terrorize Ukraine in nightly strikes, as Russia targets civilians. This is well documented in Kherson and in other places. The soldiers controlling drones are following civilians down the street and dropping grenades and bombs on civilians. And now recently it emerges that in Donetsk and Luhansk, Russian soldiers are dressing up as civilians in order to gain an advantage. And these are the tactics of desperation. The Kursk of counteroffensive epitomizes the unpredictability of this war, and Ukraine's boldness, I hope, unnerves the Kremlin, while Russia's disjointed response undermines Russia's own efforts. Whether Putin is alive, dead, or merely chilling in a Smeg fridge, merely letting the Botox settle, his empire's cracks are showing. And the question is no longer just who holds Kursk, but who holds the narrative together, and ultimately who holds the future of this protracted, tragic conflict in his hand. I don't think it's Putin.